Hey everybody, welcome to Frame Trap. I will be your host, Ben Moore. Today I am joined by Mr. Michael Huber.
Hello.
My voice cracked. This must be what puberty feels like. And Brandon Jones.
Hi.
How are we doing, guys?
Great.
I thought we would open the show, just because it has changed a lot for me. How have your food chat habits been changed in quarantine the last few months? How have you changed about eating?
For the better.
For the better? How so?
Way for the better. Haven't had fast food since this started, months. So just been cooking at home, eating at home, chicken, fish, healthy stuff.
It's amazing the amount of things you can do with chicken.
Yeah, I'm like more on a routine as well. Like I'm having 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, a lot of water. I replaced coffee with tea now. Feeling good, man.
Nice. Do you have like a new favorite dish?
No. Just like we do a bunch of random things. It'll be like spicy chicken or like, it's some like ginger shrimp dish. Just barbecue chicken sandwiches actually have been a staple for lunch.
Nice.
So that's been good.
That's a good lunch.
Yeah.
That's a kind of lunch where you're like, all right, I'm ready to take on the rest of my day kind of lunch.
Yeah.
Nice.
A little set of carrots. Delicious.
I love how I didn't even notice this until right now, but we almost have basically the same suit and background. Mm-hmm. It's nice. Resident Evil. Brandon, how about you, man?
Well, Amanda is an accomplished and passionate cook. And so she definitely saw a lot of the stuff that's going on as kind of challenge accepted. So she's like thinking of really inventive ways to get produce and, groceries in general, just like dealing with restaurants and all these, people that are distributing food around LA. And I win whenever she runs out of time or is just like, I can't manage that today. I did buy things, but I'll just prepare that tomorrow. We can just get Shake Shack tonight. And then I'm like, yes. And so I get one of those every other week or so.
It's like a little kid we get to go.
Yeah. Like I got Domino's tonight. I was literally chewing on Domino's right when this podcast started. And so every now and then Jones gets a win. But I'm just really lucky. Milo eats pretty good too, because she'll just process stuff and freeze it in cubes in the freezer, and I'll just be feeding him. And sometimes I'll get a little taste just to make sure it's not too hot after we microwave it to melt it. I'm like, that's delicious. Just like carrot and pepper and just puree that into a cup. That's all I need. That'll get me through the day.
This happened before quarantine, but Abby and I have really gotten into cooking through Blue Apron, and it's gotten to the point now where it's like, oh yeah, we can put together a really delicious meal now. I just have so much confidence in our abilities and handling ingredients and cooking things in the right way to making sure it's done properly. And it's like, oh, we can cook up some, cod, or we could do some tikka masala or some stir fry, and it's delicious. And I don't know, there's something really relaxing about just sitting there chopping an onion, man. It's just
chopping
it's kind of become my chopping broccoli. It's kind of become my little break in the day, cooking dinner. Don't do it always. I definitely still do take out quite a bit, and that has increased recently. But it's fun. It's good stuff. All right, no more messing around. You know it. I know it. This podcast could only start with one game, and it is The Last of Us Part 2. I was talking to Huber before the show. I'm about, this is just a guess. I think I'm about 7 hours in. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. And Brandon, I think you're 3 hours in?
3 or 4, yeah.
Okay. And then Huber, you've had it finished for a while now. You've been sitting with your thoughts and feelings. This is a hard game to talk about. I feel like you have to dance around so much. Obviously, we're recording this the day the game comes out, so we're not going to get into crazy story spoilers or anything like that. But as always, as a courtesy, if you are sensitive to knowing anything about the gameplay or structures or the lightest details, definitely there are timestamps in the description. You can skip right over this, but we will try to be as conscious as possible of spoilers. But I am very excited to talk about this. Before we get any further, I always like to talk to the reviewer first, especially you, Huber. Last of Us is one of your favorite games, maybe top 3 for you, I think,
easily,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And actually, Huber, I'm really excited to talk to you about this because Abby and I finished a playthrough of The Last of Us. She had never played it before, and I hadn't played through it until since launch, and so it was really nice. And it's funny, Huber, because Last of Us Part 1 is better than I remember, and I already really liked it a lot, but there were things that I picked up on. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And, Last of Us, super important game, really incredible story. A lot of people kind of upset that Last of Us 2 even exists because 1 is such a beautiful self-contained story. Mm-hmm. And so where did Last of Us 2 take you emotionally?
On a ride, man. Definitely on a ride. I found my opinions of the story changing as I played it more. I've seen so much hate on the internet before the game was even out because there were so many leaks and spoilers, and just the amount of vitriol and hate has been exhausting for me personally. It's been a lot to deal with. People criticizing my integrity and whatnot about like where I stand with this game, which hurts my feelings. But we do what we got to do.
Yeah, it has been exhausting because, like, I was thinking about it. I was like, I'm totally cool with criticizing this game, but I would love to play it first. Like I'd love to actually be able to get my hands on it and go through it, and then we can have a conversation. But it just the negativity has been very, very, very intense, and I think criticism is fantastic. I think negativity can be helpful, but it's like I haven't even had a chance to pick up the controller and play. Now I have, now that the game is out, but beforehand, once the reviews dropped, I was like, well, maybe we should withhold judgment until we actually play it. I don't know. Exactly. That doesn't seem like a crazy idea to me.
No, that seems very normal then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I loved the story and I loved these characters, and I just love this game. Again, we can't really get into too many spoilers here. It's gonna be hard to talk about that kind of stuff, story content. But I found myself thinking deeply about these characters in unexpected ways, for sure. Yeah.
I actually think there is a lot to talk about with the gameplay. I think there are changes that maybe seem small on paper, but have a pretty dramatic effect on the moment-to-moment gameplay. And also, like, it's so frustrating because I there's very little nuance that I am capable of saying when it comes to like graphical fidelity, other than it looks really good. But I cannot. Every time I boot up the game, I am in awe of the level of detail present in the tiniest stuff. I mean, when you're going through a city that is completely overgrown, and just like I was just climbing up a ladder and I was about to climb up a ladder. And I just looked at a wall and I was like, the speckles on this painted wall, like they didn't have to do this.
Yes.
They could have not included the speckles, and it still would have been a very pretty game. And just so many moments like that. I walked up to an old building and I was like, the way the wood has deteriorated, or the patches where the paint isn't present. It's crazy how lived in it feels.
Yeah, that's the thing, is the detail and the variety. Yeah. Like, you're going into so many different locations that all manage to feel different. And just from the smallest little things, you'll go into a shop and you'll notice something that's only in that specific shop. Yeah. And the game just keeps doing that the entire time, all the way through, which is crazy. Like, obviously you'll see, the same ambulance here or there, the same, like, cake mixer. It popped up in a few places, but, like, just unbelievable.
The workbenches, man. First time I went to a workbench and I was like, do I want to upgrade my pistol or my rifle? I don't know. I legit don't know. I really got to think about it. And it's like, okay, back to the pistol. And she just like puts it on the table. And I'm like, oh, wait, back to the... And I just went back and forth a couple of times. I'm like, It sounds so good. And it just, I don't know. It's very grounded. And I think there's a lot of... I think part of the story that, or the elements of the story, that are okay to talk about is just in general the storytelling in the environment, that like you are going through some places where just like every inch of it is doing the job of moving the character story or moving the the story forward, and like you as the character can really just kind of coexist and take in the story at the same time. Absolutely. On a level that just not a lot of people do, even in just my short time with the game so far. Like some really, really memorable stuff.
Like there's always that complaint, right, of like, oh well, it's just a movie. And like The Last of Us Part 2 proves to me like, no dude, this can only be done in video games. You're in Ellie's shoes, you're in control, you are the one doing these things. And yeah, it's cinematic as hell, but like this is video game storytelling.
And Go ahead.
You know, it reminds me a lot of Huber's Theater. Because just the way everything's really subdued. I turn my television up to like volume like set like 18 or something, and like normally I play it like 8 or 9 because there's just so many nuances in what, you know, so many people are just, you know, like borderline whispering, but like a lot of the scenes are kind of underplayed in that way, and everything has to be seen from so many different angles, and it's so fluid. Like you're dealing with these characters with no cutscenes or anything for a long period of time, and so just how they present to you and how lighting is set up, I don't know, just everything is very theatrical, and like how it guides you towards these experiences, and just down to just really, really tiny minute like finger movements. Like some of those transitions are really, really, when characters will touch you or you'll pick up an object. Really impressive.
It's a shame because it almost works against the game in a way where they nail so many details that I get really nitpicky about the stupidest stuff where it's like, oh, well, the pickup animation is a little weird. Like Ellie is kind of like, woo, a little bit. Yeah. It's like, well, if it didn't look so constantly good, I probably wouldn't care. Totally. Or when you grab somebody and you're going to do a stealth kill, it's like, okay, well, Ellie is saying like some variation of be quiet or shut up, like repeatedly. And it's like, again, probably wouldn't care or notice if so many other elements weren't good, because I remember the first time I did a stealth kill in Last of Us, like just seeing Ellie's face as like the knife is digging in, you're like, oh my God. Yeah. Like it's so believable. Even just the like Last of Us Part 1, right? Like the thing that was said over and over and over and over again in critique of those games is how faces told as much of the story as the actual words that they were saying. But that's true now, I think, in Last of Us 2 to a greater degree, well beyond the cutscenes. Like just going through and seeing the faces and just the impact that combat has. Like when you run up and you hit somebody with an upgraded melee weapon, and just the whiplash of the feel, like it conveys so much. Or when you get shot and you get knocked on your back. It is really incredible, just kind of the impact things have. Glass. And again, those faces, the glass. It's really outstanding, and something that I want to bring up that, again, doesn't seem like that much on paper, but really impressed me is like going through and you're sneaking around and enemies calling each other by name, and really getting the sense that like, oh, these aren't just, you know, video game goon squad, you know, 607. Like these people actually know each other, and the way that they're communicating, it seems like, you know, the designers and the writers really tried to make it feel as believable and natural as possible, where it's like this is just another group that is trying to survive just like you are, and it made me care more. Puts
feeling the kill into a whole new light, Ben.
Absolutely, you feel the kill. You're somebody that I think really went to bat for Last of Us combat, and something that Last of Us 1 I appreciated even more going through it again, where I'm like, wow, every tool that I have is worthwhile. Like, at the end of the game, using the smoke bombs to get past soldiers, and just how much damage Molotovs could do against bloaters. I felt like I was using every tool in my arsenal. It really does a good job of conveying that feeling of survival. Last of Us 2 is very similar. Really, you know, taking the template of Last of Us 1 and adding new things, but very, very similar. Was it too similar for you?
No, actually, my only problem with the game actually was just too many resources. I played on Survivor, and there were just too many resources for me. Every time a silencer broke, I would just make another one. Every time I was low on health, I would always have 3 med kits and enough to make 3 more. That was just my biggest thing. I never felt like I was forced to use everything in my arsenal, but I chose to because I like everything in the arsenal. But that was like the only real thing that held combat back for me was, I just felt a little too capable and just had a little too many resources.
That's fascinating because when I was doing my replay of Last of Us right before Last of Us 2, we played through it on normal, and I started Last of Us 2 on moderate, and I was like, this is too easy. And I bumped everything up to hard, and I was like, okay, this feels right. Like I don't have that much ammo, and I'm using things because I'm out of ammo for other things, but we're still kind of at that point in the game where you don't have that many options. Was it kind of a problem for you the whole game, or did it become more of an issue as you got more tools?
Quite a lot. Like I was stealthing, man. Like just stealthing people, just getting through, going by.
I think it hurts that and this is true in Left Behind and when you play as Ellie in The Last of Us as well. The knife, you don't have to worry about shivs or shiv charges. You just have this knife that dominates everything.
It's so absurdly good. Like you can just pick everyone off, and that's there were still challenging parts. Obviously, like there are a couple trials that are like, all right, here we go, pushing back a little bit. But every time I got to one of those points, it was like, all right, well, I have maxed out ammo and resources now, so now I'm going to dig into my resources, get through this hump, and then obviously after a big combat encounter, it rewards you with some more resources to kind of replenish. But other than having too many resources, Ben, it sounds like I'm like hard on the combat. It's still so fun, just like throwing a brick at someone and turning around and shooting this guy, or grabbing someone as a human shield and then executing them, and then like diving down and crawling. It was just so much freedom that even when it wasn't the most challenging, it was still just a blast.
It's interesting because everything just seems heightened. And I really wish I could do this every time I went into a sequel that was like 7 years after the first one. Because you pick up on, and I think even the smallest things really stand out. Like everything in Last of Us 2 just has more of an impact. Like even just the sounds the clickers make and the way that they scream is more skin curl, and it's not bad in Last of Us 1, right? Like it's good in Last of Us 1, but it's just amplified to a whole other level, and just the sounds that every firearm makes, or like the way melee connects, again talking about that impact. What I will say, I'm not sure, I feel very mixed on it. Not sure the dodge does what I hope it would do. I think when you get good at the dodging, you just sort of feel safer than when I didn't have the dodge in Last of Us 1. I feel like they're pretty generous with that window, and I feel like I'm avoiding a lot of damage that I wouldn't be avoiding in The Last of Us 1. Yeah. And it's definitely a feature where I'm like, I'm not sure this adds what they wanted it to add.
Yeah, and listen mode, for some reason, you can't turn it off. Like I never used it in Last of Us 1 because even on hard, you have the option to turn it off, and then Survivor and Grounded, it's just disabled. So like, it was weird that even on Survivor, it was there. Like I chose just not to use it during my playthrough, just because I think it takes me out of it personally. I like listening on my own and monitoring and trying to keep track of every enemy.
Yeah.
And then you throw in the dodge as well. Like you're really capable in this.
You are. And narratively, that makes some amount of sense, right? With what's going on and Ellie and her specific position. But yeah, it was the one thing where I'm like, I am avoiding damage in a way that, like, if I took that damage, I'd be more stressed with items like you were saying, and I probably have to make more medkits, and it just threw things, I think, a little bit out of whack for me. Not the biggest deal, but something I noticed. The other thing that I'm not sure on yet is how they've redistributed skills. Something that I like in Last of Us 1 is you have kind of every skill that you can upgrade from the outset. It's just some things are way more expensive. And so you're kind of making the decision like, okay, I could, improve crafting speed now, but maybe I want, something that's a lot more pills down the line. Whereas in Last of Us 2, at least on the outset, you do get more skill trees over time, but it's like, well, I have like these two options. Like I have to do this because there's nothing else for me to do. And I don't know. I don't know why they went that way. And maybe it will reveal itself later on, but
yeah, and then like because I don't use listen mode, some of the skills it was like improve your listen mode, and it's like, well shit.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna use this. So that felt kind of unfulfilling, I would say.
Sure. Brandon. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to do a little bit of historical context here. And I'm just joking. Before listeners end, Brandon, I'm just joking. I will always remember the Last of Us Grand Theft Auto 5 Game of the Year discussion.
Yes.
Where I think you obviously really liked Last of Us, but you were really pulling for Grand Theft Auto. And I think Last of Us winning got you a little salty. How are you feeling about Last of Us 2 now that there is not a Grand Theft Auto competing for your attention?
No, I can definitely be focused on it. I mean, there's a Grand Theft Auto always competing for my attention. That's the thing.
As soon as the words came out of my mouth, I was like, well.
But that's the problem with, but the first Last of Us as well, and the thing that I have not experienced yet because I'm only just a couple hours through, and like, just New Game Plus. It's got that Resident Evil 4 just one more time, leveling up all of those abilities and weapons and stuff. And so played the first Last of Us and that, replayed it again and then played it again and then, got the remaster, played that last year, played that twice, had to, because you just have to like immediately run back in.
Hell yeah.
So I always appreciated that. So that's why, that was such a skull crushing, defeat, is that like, I'm with you, Last of Us people. I think it's the second best game that came out this year.
Right.
Because I just adored it so much. Mm-hmm. And I was, media blackout on a lot of this stuff and, getting closer, working on the review and stuff with Hubert. It's just like, yes, I remember why, even having played it so many times, you go back to that experience and you remember why it's, if you like survival, if you like high tension drama and stuff like this, and even just a little supernatural here and there, it's so satisfying. It's so well done. I think this is the major thing for me, is that a lot of games, take something like BioWare, I think they approach the whole time you're going to be spending with the game and really have narrative focused sections where they're like, we're really going to spend this amount of time telling you what's going on so that you can just run out and have fun actually like playing the game. And it's like Last of Us is just going at 11 all the time. Like there's just no second of any moment where they're not like, okay, what is this character doing right now? Like, what would they say? What would they do? How would they act? So much so, Ben, that it also plays into what you were saying, where when anything goes wrong, even slightly, it feels weird.
Yeah.
I've had it, even just at 3 or 4 hours, I've had a couple uncanny moments and cutscenes, and I'm just like, the only reason I felt that way is because you are trying so damn hard to just like constantly make it real, real for you, real for the character, make it surprising. And so that's what I just sit and just marvel at. That's why I'm just like, I cannot wait. That's why like the opening menu to a Naughty Dog game is like stirring, because you're like, here we go. I know. You're just like, I know at least the next like hour and a half is going to be, if Amanda comes in like, hey, do you want? I'd be like, no, stop. Like I can't tear myself away from this thing, because it's clear the performers and the developers and everybody is just like pouring sweat, trying so hard to just make it nonstop thrilling.
Shout out to go ahead.
It's heavy.
That effort really is outstanding. There have been so many moments where I'm like, okay, you didn't have to do that, but you sort of didn't just take the easy way out, where it's like, well, every game does this, so we're going to do it this way. And I like the map. There was a moment where I was completely blown away, where like, you have this folded up map that you take out of your pocket and you are marking areas that you've explored. And there's a moment when one of the characters is like, oh, we're here. And they like touch the map or something, and then that's where your little arrow appears, and it's like, oh wow, like you waited until that happened. And there's so many moments like that where they try to contextualize the mechanics that you're doing and the gaminess aspects within this specific world. And it is a tireless effort. They're trying as absolutely hard as they can to make this world feel believable. And I think that effort is incredibly appreciated.
Yeah, building on that, Ben, like the criticisms of Last of Us 1 were so many times. How many times do we hear the waist-high walls? Like, you're entering a combat arena now. Mm-hmm. Like, these combat arenas feel so natural. Like, the waist-high walls are so camouflaged into the environments that it never feels like you're in a video game arena. You're in Seattle, you're there.
Right. So. And coming from Last of Us 1 to Last of Us 2 immediately, it's shocking how much bigger these areas feel. Like playing Last of Us 2 really makes Last of Us 1 feel more like a theme park ride, where now I'm like, oh, this isn't actually an overgrown city, and I have space for it to feel that way. And pretty early on, you're given at least in this one specific area, you're given a ton of freedom to kind of go wherever you want and explore. And there's so much that you can uncover. And like, there's a moment where it's like, oh, I just went to this like random edge of the map and I found a little camp and the characters are having a conversation here. Because you have moments like that in Last of Us 1, right? Where Joel and Ellie are talking to each other constantly and they're getting to know each other. By having this section where you're given so much space, these two characters, like the banter feels a lot more natural. Like they're kind of just talking about super mundane things, but you're like, yeah, this is exactly what they would do if they were scrounging for supplies for an entire day. Like they would probably stumble upon these topics. And it just feels remarkably believable.
There would probably be long moments of silence where they're just not talking. Like, it's
right.
And that's why, again, it's why it reminds me of theater. It's like that kind of dialogue is really hard to just write.
Yes.
Like you need to have a ton of involvement from the actors, a ton of experimentation, and just doing scenes again and again and again. Mm-hmm. And so you see them like with the whole get up doing motion cap and just like how emotionally distraught they are, how much they give when you get into the game. It's just like, of course, it makes such a difference. And it's just, I don't mean to automatically say that the work Naughty Dog narratively is just going to elevate itself. It's just an attention specifically to how they want to kind of drag you through these really difficult narratives sometimes. Just the way that they do it. It's a funny thing, actually, Ben, having a Rockstar v Naughty Dog argument.
Yeah.
Because Rockstar's like the exact opposite. They're like, we're just going to lean back, put all of these pieces of candy in front of you and just go gobble them up. Whereas like, with Naughty Dog, it's like, nope, you do have choice. And, I'm looking forward to a lot of that freedom you're talking about. But at the same time, it's like, there's some doors I'm just like, I know there's going to be a really difficult scene on the other side of this door. And it's just, it's so much. It's so hard not to get, your heart ripped out by everything that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of that, Hubert, I know you don't always like this argument a lot. And I hear you. I think discussion of it can be a little vague, but I do want to talk to you about pacing. Because playing through Last of Us 1 again, I was shocked at how well executed the pacing was.
Billstown.
I know people definitely have criticism of certain sections and things like, moving the pallets around or the dumpsters or whatever it is. And there are certainly some pacing critiques that I've heard with Last of Us 1, but I think by and large, excellently paced game. Even the second time I was pretty gripped the entire time. Last of Us Part 2, there have been moments where I'm like, oh, like I'm surprised we're still doing this. Like I'm surprised we're still here. There was a specific moment where I had spent a long time trying to find this thing. No, actually, a better way of saying this. You go and you have a really intense combat encounter. And I was like, oh, wow, that was great. It introduced a new type of enemy. It was a really cool scene. I I had to deal with that new type of enemy. And then I was like, okay, that was really intense. I'm ready to kind of like move on with the story. And then I remember just like going right back into another combat encounter. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like there are just brief moments where I'm ready to move on, I think, faster than the game is. I don't know if you ever felt that way or if that changes throughout the course of the game. You know, obviously not through it yet, but
yeah, I think it balances it pretty well. Like I think on the flip side too to that, then it'll be like, wow, we haven't fought anything for a while. So I think it kind of gets both of those itches where it's like, all right, we're in trial by fire here. It's like combat.
Right.
But then other times it'll be like, all right, let's take our foot off the gas. Let's breathe.
Right.
So I think it gets both parts. The only thing was me just having a lot of resources where eventually some of the encounters weren't stressful or anything. They were just kind of like, all right, like mm-hmm. I'm on autopilot in a way where it's like, well, I'm surprised I'm thinking about something else not related to the game right now because I'm just like on autopilot stabbing people in the neck. So.
Again, something that has been brought up ceaselessly when it comes to Last of Us praise, but it is relevant again now. Like really, truly, some of the best like vocal performances, like voice acting performances I've ever heard in a game. Like Ashley Johnson is impeccable. Troy Baker is impeccable. Like
I can't wait for this spoiler mode, man. I love this story so much.
Well,
I just love it so much.
I think a shout out to Ashley Johnson, because something that I was amazed at, like I paused the game and I looked at my wife and I was like, I can't believe she did that. Is, you know, like Ashley Johnson as Ellie is very well known, right? Like you can just kind of immediately call that voice to your mind. That's how impactful the performance is. In Last of Us Part 2, Ellie is older. Like not like decades older, but like moving into adulthood, and the way that she changes her voice to still sound like Ellie, but has gone through changes. I was like, holy shit. Like, how many takes did it get for you to sound exactly like a slightly older Ellie? Like it is amazing. Like the super subtle things that she's doing with her voice.
Yeah, dude.
Blowing me away.
Dina, just epic character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right from the beginning. I feel like it's safe to talk about Dina.
Sure.
Just such a real character, and one that is just you're immediately invested in. And again, it's like Jones was saying with the theater and just those small little moments when you're going through. It's like, how do they even write this stuff? Like, how much of this was improv? How much of this was written?
Yeah.
Just I don't understand how you could not care about these people,
right?
You know, or like especially Dina. It's like, how could you not connect to this very real human being?
Right. And something that I think Naughty Dog has done to their benefit, they've really used kind of the type of game that they're making to add a different perspective. Like, you know, in Last of Us 1, you get very much a kind of father-daughter relationship between Joel and Ellie, and then Left Behind, you kind of get like a younger perspective, what it's like growing up in this situation. I think that's really valuable and gives you a different context. And in Last of Us Part 2, you get sort of like a young adult perspective or a lover's perspective in this. And all three feel like they give you a deeper appreciation for what it's like living in this world. And it's not just the same perspective over and over and over again. And I really think that is cool.
Like from the second Jessie knocks on your door and is like, so last night was pretty crazy, you know, like just immediately endearing. I'm immediately invested in this character. Like, let's go.
Yeah. I am very excited for this spoiler. Oh, something else that I want to bring up, Hubert. Last of Us Part 1, a weak part to me is the notes that you find.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so there are some really, really good ones, right? Like Bill's note. Everybody knows that note, right? Incredible. Yeah. The audio diary that you get talking about the monkeys and the guy that is with them and what happens. Because there are really great ones. Yeah. But a lot of the notes, I think, in Last of Us 1 feel kind of samey, where it's like, all right, person trying to survive, things are going bad. It's like very typical, like, this is what it's like to live in this world. Not that it's, worthless. It does add color to the world, but not a lot of notes that really stood out. Last of Us Part 2, Ellie has this journal, and I'm like, this is way more effective. This like is much
strange vibes.
This is much better storytelling, where it's like you are getting inside of her head this character that you deeply care about, and you get to talk, and you're getting kind of this unspoken element of her.
Yeah, dude. And it makes exploration even better, because there's some optional areas where you'll discover something and she'll write it down, and it's like, yes, that feels so good. I get a little more insight into Ellie. I'm filling out this journal. And of course, just all the notes blew me away. Like these, it's almost like episodes of a show or something where a bunch of notes will contribute to an entire side story. And just the way they're implemented are so amazing. Of course, you can argue, like, what the hell are some of these notes doing here? Like, but for the most part, they feel natural. It feels like how people would communicate in this world. I just was blown away, by all the notes.
I think this is the first frame trap in a while where, like, I kind of just want to talk about one game. Like, it's gonna be hard moving on, but I am very excited for that spoiler mode. I hope we can get to it sooner rather than later, because I think there's a lot to digest, and obviously this is a game that I think very much benefits from being unshackled and being able to kind of talk about whatever you want in whatever capacity you want to.
Can I first say, you guys are making me feel good, because I've had this it's been a trial, man. This review was soul sucking. There's a lot of haters out there.
Yeah.
All I've wanted to do is talk to some level-headed individuals like you. You guys are making me feel good about it.
Good.
But I wanted to get your guys' opinions, because obviously the reviews have come out. There's been all this noise, even more noise than when I got my hands on the game. Has that impacted your play? Has that impacted your expectations, or made you nervous to hop in? Or do you kind of just try to drown all that out? Where were you guys at when you first booted it up?
I think when I first booted it up, I was worried, because not really because of the noise, although there's stuff to say about the noise, absolutely. But I think it was just like my wife was playing through Last of Us with me for the first time, and she had the exact same response to the ending that I did. Like, she was in tears, and I was just like staring at her, watching like her stomach get into all of these knots, and I'm like, yes, this ending is absolutely just as good as I remember it being, and the ambiguity it has is so powerful. And so I think I get really annoyed when things don't know how to end, or when to leave a story alone. And so I think that my concern was kind of undermining the story of the original Last of Us. And so far I have not felt that way. So far I've really felt like Last of Us 2 has had purpose behind what it's trying to say.
Yes.
I think, my thoughts will obviously evolve and change as I play more of it. But so far I'm immediately sucked into this world. Brandon, how about you? How do you feel about the noise?
Oh yeah, no, none of that affected me. Like I was saying, that the starting screen, just that the boat bobbing up and down. I think there was just enough about what they did with the first game that if they were going to do another game, I can just imagine like the quality of it, especially when they're advertising, the way they're choosing the visions that they're giving us of the work that they're doing, and just kind of how seamless those have been in terms of just these like big gaps of gameplay. So I'm like, okay, I have a pretty good idea that they just want to blow this world up. They want to add a lot more characters and stretch the story out as much as they can. There's like a little question of, if it's part 2, does that mean you had this story in your head when you were making the first game? Is this something that you feel like, compelled to tell the story? And I'm, even after just a couple hours of the game, it's like, yep, no, I really, really want to see the story all the way into the end. And so totally makes sense why, this would be something they would spend an entire generation doing, something that they would weigh like all of, that much effort just on one experience, just on one story. And so it definitely feels important in that regard, just from, a creative team making something that, is just so crazy detailed. I feel bad because I do want to be on that spoiler mode. I don't want to delay it because of my absence. And so like, I want to hustle through this game as fast as I can. And like, there were some houses in the very beginning where I was like, are you sure I can get in that house? Okay. Like, I should probably move on.
Take your time, Jones. Take your time.
It's tough. I got to get through it.
It is definitely a take your time game. But yeah, I hear you. It's not just with The Last of Us, but it has felt very intense with The Last of Us 2, where it's like, do people even want to talk about it? Like, I don't think any of us would ever say for a single second, like, oh, you cannot criticize this masterpiece, this gift from the heaven. None of us feel that way. Like I have things that I don't like about Last of Us 2. I'm sure when I finish it, I will have more things that I don't like, but I want to have a conversation about it. And I don't want to criticize it just to criticize it. Like if I do have something that I don't like, I want to be able to articulate it. I want to be able to specifically say why I like or don't like something, to the best of my ability. But it's just this, and it's not everyone, of course. Like it's not like every person in the world feels this way. But this like contingency of I have decided it's trash. If you like it, you are trash. Like just this like it's sucking up any potential conversation, and it's just like why? Like why can't we just have a chat about this? Yeah, it's very, very weird where it's kind of become like this dogma for people that I don't understand. And I get it. And I do think it is a very complicated situation where hearing about the working conditions in Naughty Dog, right, like is a problem and needs to be addressed within the context of this game, right? Like there are very real world things that are not good that we can't just forget about. And I do understand that. And I think there's probably some handling of some material in this game that I could see rubbing people the wrong way, very rightfully so. I think there's plenty of room for conversation, but just like this, like I'm gonna kind of hunt you down if you like this game mentality seems counterproductive and isn't helping anybody. So I don't understand that blind hatred. And I just want to have a conversation about it at the end of the day.
Well said, Ben. Well said. Let's just talk.
Let's just talk.
Talk it out. Talk it out. Hug it out. Let's go.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. Something that seems hard to see any other sort of perspective on, and maybe there is another perspective, but playing through this game, like, you could see the passion that went into it.
Yeah.
Like, no one would sweat those paint speckles so much if they didn't care about what they were making. Like, they're
10 out of 10 paint speckles.
I think there was a lot of pain that probably went into this game, but there was also a lot of love. There was also a lot of passion. And, much like Red Dead 2, like, we had conversations about the working conditions of that studio and what brought it to life. But I think trying to be fair in your evaluation of it, like there is some incredible craftsmanship going on, and that does deserve recognition on some level. I don't know. Anything else we want to say before we move on?
Yeah, I think it's just a heavy game.
It is a heavy game. And a heavy time.
It's just a monolith of a game, man. There's just no way. On the best of days, in the best of playthroughs, you're going to come out of this thing weeping like a baby and angry, you're like, I want to fight somebody. I don't know how, and that's kind of what it's about. It's about, grieving for this world. It's changed so much. And it's just like when we had the gameplay demo and they're like saying things like pandemic and quarantine, you're just like, do I want to play this? This is something that I really want to get through. And so it's like I'm kind of not surprised. It's a PlayStation exclusive. It's such a huge budget. We're right near like a cross-gen. Like it's just so many recipes for just a really spicy 7-layer dip of people being pissed and or just having like a lot of opinions, and you throw spoilers into the mix. It's I have all sorts of opinions about all different types of arguments we can have with The Last of Us, but like I was not surprised that this game got leaked and that leak was such a big thing. I was not surprised that Sony was very frustrated about that happening and, got very pushy about it. And just the tensions are high because it's just kind of like the whole center of this game. It's timely and poorly timed at the same time.
Yeah. Brandon, you just made me think of Death Stranding. In retrospect, not even in retrospect, at the time I felt this way. I still feel this way. I kind of have felt this way about Death Stranding for a long time. I think there are things in Death Stranding that are terrible, that are just awful, that are just like not good parts of the game. But I ended up walking away with a positive experience. And I still think back on that game very, very fondly because it felt like a game that was aggressively trying to do something different. And any time a game with that budget and that level of recognition takes so many risks, I even if I hate it or hate certain aspects of it, and I think there are a lot of aspects, for the aspects of Death Stranding that I hate or don't like, there are other aspects that I love and I think are executed on so well. But taken together, I think I just admire the risk of Death Stranding so much. And while it's very different and not a one-to-one comparison, I think Last of Us Part 2 is definitely is taking risks and using the opportunity that it has to try to go somewhere else.
That's what I signed up for.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. That's the hate I don't understand from a lot of people who are like, Last of Us should have been this. And it's like, right. Last of Us should be something that blindsides you like a truck. Like you just did not see that coming or didn't know you're going to go in that direction, or just surprise, surprise, surprise. Like that was what happened when I played the first game, and that's what I wanted to do in this one, especially since it's like a game a gen that this company gets to make, at least in this franchise. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're putting all of that effort into something, it's like, let's shake people up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I expect to be quite shaken as I continue playing it. But let's go on the total opposite of the spectrum from Last of Us. Let's talk about Desperados 3.
Really nice talking to you guys about that.
Yeah, I want Hubert. That spoiler mode, I am excited for. I'm excited. All right, Desperados 3, Brandon Jones. This game has been getting some hype, and I think you're pretty hyped on it.
It's
God damn it.
I had a really good E3 appointment where this was there. I think this was the same thing that like
hey, remember E3?
Remember E3, everybody?
Yeah.
That like Destroy All Humans remaster was at, and like there's just a lot of fun things. And I am not a big strategy guy, and certainly not familiar with the Desperado series at all. But like went away from that appointment being like, whoa, put that one on the list because that showed really well. And I was planning on reviewing this game. This came out on the 16th, and I just have not had time, and probably won't have time to hoping to finish it this year. But one of the reasons why I was like, I don't have time is because that game is kind of a crawl, but in a beautiful way. So like it's Western cowboy, like top down stealth, really pretty environments. Like the graphics service the story in the world, kind of like Warcraft 3, where it's just like, yeah, zoom in on these things and it's not the most amazing looking character I've ever seen, but like I'm completely immersed in the size of this world, and they can still tell some really intricate stories and have some really neat moments. But the big thing is just stealth, is trying to get through that world using very simple tools, just like a knife. Like your primary character has a knife, you can just stealth kill anybody, easily, but he's got to get that knife back. And you have guns, and he's got 2 pistols that he can fire at the same time, but makes a lot of noise, and so you only want to use that as a last resort, or if you're far enough away from other people, they can't do anything about it.
Are bullets a resource?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And it hasn't really been that much of a problem, but there are spots on the map where you're just like, should I go over? Should I just not deal with my guns and get through this part, or should I go that other way, get that ammo, and then go through this other part? But it's just a lot of pausing and staring and really plotting about like how I'm going to do it. And there's two systems that pull it off really well. One is just a like, something that's not, I mean, Final Fantasy has this, it's not like that unusual, but let's just say a pause and execute mechanic. So you can freeze time. And then if you have, I've only played levels where there were two different characters that I was shuffling between, but their abilities were different enough that you can kind of set off a chain reaction and then tell everybody you want to do that and then hit execute. And so it's fun when you're going to make a lot of noise. Like one guy had a sniper rifle and my main guy's got two guns. And so if I like tell my guy, like, go shoot those guys, because I know it's going to take him like 3 or 4 steps to come around the rock and do it. And then by that time, this guy will have already sniped that guy in the back so that I can, and so it's fun to play in replay levels to be like, how crazy can I go through this game? Maybe I don't want to use that as a crutch. Maybe I want to make it difficult and try to do all this stuff in actual real time, make a lot of noise and waste a lot of bullets. And then when you're done, kind of Breath of the Wild style, where you could go back and look at the map and see the blue line tracking like everywhere you've been.
Nice.
It tracks everything you did and then marks each of the kills. And I think F5 or F7 was saved because I played it on PC. And
F5 is usually a quick save key. So.
And they tell you when it's been a minute since you've saved. They're like, I would save right now. Like, it's just that kind of game where you can die very quickly, or you can just get that one more time where you're like, I took a little bit of damage, but I don't want to take any damage. I want to get, if it's just me and a blade and a pistol, like I want to see if I can get through the end of this with just nobody knew I was there. And so I really dig the world. Again, it's why I just kind of threw my hands up with the review, because I'm like, I really want to spend an hour on every single one of these levels, and not just like, this is taking forever, but like, haha, you didn't. I just took out 6 guys with 2 characters, just because they didn't see me coming. And there's lots of great, stuff you can find in each level, and lots of secondary objectives, making sure people survive, and the characters are all just, I don't have time for you, buddy. It's just like nobody wants to work together. Uneasy alliances all over the place. And so you have these characters that are kind of thrown together and forced to finish missions and stuff. They don't bother with like weird cutscenes and stuff. It's just all done at it's very cinematic, kind of like classic Westerns where you just get big wides. It just does that like the whole game. And so the music's great. The voice acting's great, because you're just always like, 100 yards from everything. And so they sell it really well.
That's always the objective type. Whenever it like comes up or I hear it, I'm like, maybe, is protecting somebody. Like, I think it just inherently always feels worse when you fail because somebody else can't take care of themselves in a game. Like some computer, right, just is being frustrating. It can be very tense and very rewarding and awesome. It's not that it is always bad, but it's the one objective type where I'm like, I hope this isn't a giant pain in the ass that isn't fun.
It's kind of like the equivalent of like a breach in Call of Duty, where it's just like you're going through that doorway in slow mo, and then you see like when if you pull it off and no one's hurt, you're like, yes,
sure.
And so it's like that's again where the F5 comes in, where you just try it again. Then you're like, oh, cool, I did it. I got that timing just right.
Nice.
To where we did some cool shootout.
It's gotten better, I think, since Red Dead Redemption, but Western games, still not a lot of them. And this being a strategy game is interesting. I feel like it's almost always like fantasy or historical or sci-fi. Do you feel like it's exploring that space in a new, interesting way? As somebody who, loves Westerns, like, do you think experiencing it this way as a strategy game is valuable in a surprising way?
Yeah, slight Hitman vibes. Each area kind of like you really need to pay attention to where you can go, and you do get options. You have a little bit of wiggle room, but it is fun to explore the genre that way, because again, it's predominantly stealth, and so your tools are fun in how you play off characters, but they're not like super elaborate. You don't have drones. There's no, there's not a lot of like tracking you can do. Beyond just normal people being careful, and so there's just kind of like a rawness to that. Like, again, just that knife not being like, oh, it does a lot of damage. Like, it just kills a dude. You just can just run in and like throw a knife at a guy. So it's just kind of like there's a brutality to it that's it's a different kind of Western, because like there always is that your hero, his horse dies and he's just got the knife in his boot, and like it's about halfway through a Western where he's got to get out. It's just the game. And so it's really satisfying, especially again when it like tracks everything that you've done at the end of a mission. It's just kind of fun to like see the beginning of a level. They give you the map of just like, okay, here's this wedding that this lady's got to get out, and so like you're her plus the character you played as 2 levels ago, and so like they're just meeting up and doing 2 completely different things. But whereas in Red Dead, it was always laser focused on me, like on the central character that you were playing. It's just fun to just kind of look at the big picture and see scenes play out a la Hitman. It's just kind of fun to just stand there on a balcony and just watch the humans go by and do their thing. So yeah, just setting wise and the sound, I'm playing all of it with headphones on. So it's just like the sounds are really nice. And again, lots of voice acting.
Brandon, if you had to guess, how many personal fantasies about being a cowboy have you had?
Just in my life or in this game?
In your life. Like, how many times have you been sitting on a porch, rocking back and forth, thinking about, man, if I was in the Wild West?
Yeah. I remember, well, it's the thing about Southern California, too. I remember I was like up by Santa Barbara going horseback riding, and I was talking to a guy who was a surfer who was, like would take people horseback riding. And he was just like, Southern California, right? I'm like, I lived here all my life. I love it. And he was like, people ask me why I moved here. And I point at the mountains and the ocean. I'm like, they're right there. I'm like, I love this guy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's just something about it, and it's a pace for sure. And again, like strategy is always tough for me because it's the dopamine, Huber. That dopamine is sparse. It's like I just need, every like little victory. It's like, okay, every 10 minutes I finally made it through it. So a lot of times I don't necessarily have the patience, for that stuff if I'm not good at it, if I'm really struggling with the gameplay. But with this, you're just slowly scraping away at each level. So I think that does fit a very laid back, like gotcha, like it's fun. The vibes are good.
Brandon, you made me think of something very specific when you were talking about strategy. So recently we watched the
Baldur's Gate 3.
Not Baldur's Gate 3, but we were watching the Paradox stream, and they were talking about a bunch of different things, and they were talking about Crusader Kings 3, and I was like, man, I really want to play Crusader Kings 3. I've wanted to play Crusader Kings 2 forever. It always seems so fascinating to me. I'm not going to make any excuses. I'm going to boot it up. So I installed Crusader Kings 2, and I'm like, I know everybody says this is super complicated, but I'm just going to do it. And I got like 10 minutes in, I was like, I can't do this right now. I can't. Like, what is this? There's so many screens. I just was like, I'm sure I could puncture through this wall, but I just can't do it right this second.
I'm sorry, but that makes me feel good, Ben, because I had a similar thing with like Divinity, where it's like, I know this is complicated. I know this is so much. I know this game is a 10 out of 10. Yeah. Got like an hour in, and I'm just like, all right, like my brain hurts. I need to stop.
Yeah. I'm sure it's
Divinity's
one of those
not
things.
Even nearly as complicated.
Well, it's just
a lot.
There's a certain type of fear in the unknown, right? Where you're just like staring at a screen, and you're like, look, you're telling me what it is, but I don't know what it is. It's very frustrating. But sorry to get off track with Desperados.
Well, but they do a good job in this game. That's what I love about when they introduce new characters. It's not like, okay, here's their skill tree, here's everything that they can do. Get to know this, because that's one thing that frustrates me about like a lot of stuff, fighting games, whatever, is that I'm like, there's a part of this I really love, but I feel like I'm doing it wrong if I'm not doing the other 60% of things that I'm just frankly not interested in, just to at least try them and understand. That's when you talk about like Xenoblade and stuff, where you're just like, oh, you have to learn the thing that you're doing wrong. It's like, sounds stressful. I just want to do the thing that I like to do. But, when they introduce a new character, it's like, here's the thing that he does, and like now that you're used to just killing a bunch of people, now you move on to a level. Now there's a character who introduced subterfuge. So like, you don't even have to kill people. You can pretend to be someone else.
That's
it's like,
so cool.
Oh, well, the last level was all combat. So, okay, let's try that. That's really fun. And then it maybe gives you another idea of like, oh, you know what? Yeah. I want to go back to that first level because I can probably blow through that now. Just knowing how this game works, how AI works. And it's fun. Yeah, it's I wasn't stressed out in terms of too many options. Although there is, a freedom in how to do things. I just was like, this is a potentially 20-hour Western epic miniseries. Gone with the Wind times 8. Like, maybe I'll have time to finish this before the end of the summer, but definitely not by embargo. And and because I knew I wasn't reviewing it, that's when I went out to check out other reviews, and just a lot of people that seem to care very much about the franchise and just the genre in general are like, ding, like it keeps up that interesting pace the whole time. So I'm looking forward to it.
Maybe this is a lot more obvious, I think, than it seems to me. But I was noticing Desperados 3 getting quite a bit of buzz, and I was like, there's a Desperados 1 and 2? Mm-hmm. I feel like I try to be very aware of as many games as I can, but I was like, I've not heard of this. Did I just miss? Like, were you aware of this series before? Like, I was
aware of the name.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. But PC strategy again is my. Sure. If I was on Jeopardy, I'd be like, "Damn it, PC strategy." Yeah, it's my Achilles heel. I do not know, and that's one thing. Again, I think it's just really classy about the way they did this game is that they're not like, oh, we're gonna have character art come up, or we got to zoom in real close and have weird cutscenes. It's very dry and not jarring the way it tells its story, and just has like just a nice slow. Mm-hmm. Slow pace to it that if you have, seen a lot of Westerns, if you like that genre, you'll appreciate it.
Cool. I'm super excited about this. We instead of caught in a frame trap, we have a new thing that I'm trying, and we'll see how long we keep it going for. But it's called BESTAKE. Oh. So instead of HOTTAKE, we got a BESTAKE, and cool. What I try to do is any thing up at about the halfway point of the show or a little bit before or whenever it happens, I try to be like, that was a really good point. And then you have started your kind of good opinion combo is how it goes. And then I try to see how long you can keep it going. Now, when we did it before with Ian doing the BESTAKE, I just wanted him to say good opinions about anything. I'm like, maybe it would be better if we focused in on something. So Huber, you are going to be at our BESTAKE seat today.
Okay.
And something that you said that I was really, really happy about is you talking about how there were too many resources in Last of Us Part 2, and you're really coming down on that. And I as somebody who is a champion of survival horror and feeling that desperation, I could sense your passion for that type of feeling and those types of mechanics. And, it's not really one thing you said specifically. I think kind of that position that you have, I really like it. But what I want you to do for your opinion combo today is I want you to give me food opinions. Just specifically focus on food, kind of going back to the beginning of the show.
Okay.
And we'll see how many good opinions you have about food. And you just got to throw something out there.
You got this, Huber. You got this.
Okay. Ramen is the best food.
Of any food. There's a lot of food out there.
Ramen ticks all the boxes.
What are those boxes?
It fills you up. It's comforting.
Okay.
And most importantly, it's fun to share a meal of ramen with someone. Not necessarily the same bowl, but when multiple people are eating ramen, there's a bond. There's a vibe. People are talking.
You mentioned the same bowl. Is that something you would be willing to do with the right person?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, Huber. Obviously, pandering. I love ramen. It is the best. So you clear the first jump there. Give me another food opinion.
Okay. Mexican food is good anytime. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Mexican food at any moment is amazing.
Do you have a favorite type of Mexican food, like a favorite dish?
Burritos. Gotta be. Nothing like a burrito. The idea of a burrito.
That was an easy alley-oop. Yeah.
It's everything right there.
All right, that's two. The combo's going strong. You're juggling them in the air. You got them in the corner. You got another one.
Breakfast is the most important, but the most boring meal of the day.
Huber, breakfast food is some of my favorite food ever. And it could be because I'm a Midwest boy, but eggs, bacon, hash browns, ham, sausage,
French toast.
There's never
Belgian
good
waffles.
any time.
There's never any surprises.
What are you, Hubert? All right,
Just lost him. Totally lost him.
all right. No, hold on. I'm gonna throw your argument back in your face because at game trailers you would get upset when you're like, listen, not everything needs to innovate, okay? Sometimes things just need to be good. People prize innovation too much. Sometimes I just want some good fucking eggs and bacon.
Touche, man. Touche.
And there's a reason why it's been a classic forever. You can't beat it.
You got me. Okay.
Well, it's first thing in the morning. You don't want your world shaken up the first thing in the morning. You want to wake up, have something that's familiar. Then you can surprise me. But
you got me. I agree with you guys. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Using his own tactics against him here.
Yep.
This BESTAKE was brought to you by some wonderful shout-out tier patrons. If you would like to find more about this tier and you would like your name shouted out on our various podcasts, please go to patreon.com/easyallies. The way that I want to do this, I think it's going to be another kind of rapid-fire style, but I want... Huber, I'm going to say the name, and then I want you to say shout, and then Brandon, I want you to say out. And I want there to be as little space between those things as possible.
got it.
We got it? Okay. Our first shout out to your patron is Blue.
Shout.
Out.
A little faster, guys. You can do it. Caleb, Togi, Crawford.
Shout.
Out.
Better, I think. Elthanas.
Shout.
Out.
Oh, we're crossing the streams here. We don't cross. We want distinctly separated. Greg, TheDarkKnight Kettering.
Shout.
Out.
You the inflection there made up for it. Jessie Blu.
Shout.
Out.
That was my favorite one, I think. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful shout out to your patrons. That was fun. Huber, thank you for it's hard being put on the spot to just come up with random opinions about something, but I think you did a nice job.
That was fun.
Let us move on. What are we going to move on to? Huber, you were so excited to talk about this at the beginning of the show. You got jazzed. I could see it in your eyes. Let's talk about Amnesia: The Dark Descent.
Dude, Amnesia. Holy shit. Holds up. I don't know where this craving came from. I don't know why. I'm dipping back into the world of Amnesia, but
Look at both of your backgrounds right now. I don't know where this came from. What?
It's always there. No, but Ben, I talk to you all the time about my love for replaying games, and I feel like I need to beat a game 2 times to have just a rock solid grasp of it. And I beat Amnesia once, way back in the day, but I didn't do it justice. I didn't do the patented turn off all the lights, shut the blinds, lock the doors. Like, I played some of it in the day. There were like 1 or 2 times where I remember getting stuck, and I would like watch a YouTube video. So
Huber,
now,
I think you should have to pay like extra taxes for your sins. Like,
I know. I have sinned, and now I am redeeming myself. But yeah, I dove back in, and I'm a few hours in, and it's aged very well. I am proud to report. And the thing I just really wanted to highlight was the atmosphere of this game and how oppressive it is. This is a game that immerses you so hard and is so heavy and oppressive and dark, and there's very minimal direction. It's taxing on your mind. Like, after an hour of playing this game, the thing I love most is honestly, this is going to sound like an insult, but my favorite part about Amnesia is turning it off. Is escaping back into reality and turning the lights on and just watching something jolly, like getting out of that world, because it is just so freaking intense.
It is psychological horror done masterfully well.
Yes.
Not only is it oppressive in terms of like how helpless you are and how like much you have to escape things constantly, but just like the trippy things that are happening, making you question what's right in front of you. And man, the like diaries from people and just it's like you get stabbed. The Amnesia is like getting stabbed in the gut, and it's like it's turning it as slow as possible, and it never lets up. Like you just get that thing in your stomach, and it never lets up. Yeah.
Even when you're in a relatively safe area that has light, you're still just so on edge. Your primary resources are your tinderbox, which can light things like candles and lamps. That is so limited, that resource. Like, you have to think about every single time you want to use one of these things. And then, of course, your lantern is your primary tool, and that burns fuel, and that's even more rare than the tinderbox. So you are constantly thinking about resources, where to go, what to do. You're constantly on edge. And the scares just hold up, not to give anything away, but like, for example, you'll walk by classic Jones. This is such a Jones scare. Walk by a piano, go down the hallway and into another room. You hear the piano start to play.
You're just what makes it a Jones scare?
It just reminds me, it's like a haunted mansion flair. It gives me that haunted mansion feel.
Well, the thing with the lantern is that you get comfortable with darkness, or try to. You try to realize, like, all right, I guess I just won't use this thing then. And then you just spend like 15 minutes of the game in just darkness. It slowly starts to just kind of erode.
There's the sanity.
Your eyes start to adjust a little bit,
Yeah.
Huber, you were talking earlier about resources and how important that can be. And I think Amnesia does such a great job, because there are a lot of times where games will try to trick you into thinking things are more desperate than they are, where it's like, we always want you to feel kind of on edge, but we're also going to make sure that you always have what you need. Whereas Amnesia and the oil, it's like, no, you really got to think about when you turn that thing on. Like, that's up to you. Like, you are in charge of that, and that the decision making that goes into it is
and the way they ease you into it, right? Like, the beginning has a lot of areas that this candle's already lit, and then like an hour in, it's like, oh, this entire area is pitch black, and I have like 6 tinderboxes. Like, what the hell am I going to do? So just the strategy element, and then of course you throw those freakos into the mix, and it's very unsettling. And just the ramp up of puzzles. I think getting lost in a game like this can really turn a lot of people off. It can be really frustrating and just annoying. But it slowly ramps up. Just the beginning areas, there's only like a few places to go. It doesn't get too overwhelming. It's definitely paced well.
Yeah, I definitely think it has a focus to it. And we were talking about Silent Hill 4 not that long ago in Frame Trap, and I think a weakness of that game is it has all of these good ideas, but there's almost too much going on, where it's like, all right, you shouldn't have like these unkillable things and this person that you need to escort, like it and having to go back to levels again. Like it was just like too many things that it felt like it was trying to do at any one given time. And things were kind of like, just if you took out one of these elements, it might be a better, more enjoyable game, and you might be able to develop this one mechanic that you're trying to do a little bit better. Whereas Amnesia, it is extremely focused. It's like, this is what's going on with this game. This is what you need to worry about, and it's going to be terrible, but it's going to be like these small handful of things.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and kind of digging back into why I started playing it, I actually kind of remember now. It's because Machine for Pigs, actually. I never played it.
I haven't played Machine for Pigs either.
Never played Machine for Pigs, and I was like, man, I got to go back and just soak up this entire franchise again, get it fresh, because it's always there. It's always on greatest horror games of all time. I know they're making a new one. They kind of like stealth announced Amnesia Rebirth.
It looks really different
a while ago, and that kind of like, I was like, oh shit. I didn't even know that announcement like flew by me.
And you haven't played any Soma yet either, have you?
No, and this is not a shot at Jones, but it was purely because of Jones. Jones
Huber, how is that not a shot at Jones?
it's nothing.
I mean, my Soma thoughts hold up, man. Soma, like, there are parts of Soma that are fascinating, but it's not one of my favorite horror games. Like there were definite parts of Soma where like the monster's chasing me, and I'm like, I'm in this door, I'm in this door, whatever, and I'm just moving on. Where I'm like, this isn't like scary, and that's why Amnesia is interesting, because even like Resident Evil and parts of like the best moments of Silent Hill, like I definitely feel like I'm in a game that's kind of like driving the story and the gameplay and everything forward, or I'll get really comfortable with a specific combat mechanic. And it's like, this is chilling. My heart is pumping, but I'm also like, yay, video games are fun. Where like when I was playing Amnesia, I'm like, I'm trapped in just a big, boring, creepy castle. Where the hell am I going? You know, like I would just walk into a hallway, and it wasn't like the stuff that Corey talked about with God of War, where it's like we really want to guide people so they can follow the story, and Amnesia's like, screw you, I don't want to you know, like you figure out where you have to go. And that's rough in a game where you're trying to preserve resources and understand the environment. You get to a staircase, like, have I been up that staircase? And it's like, just even searching over there is like, can potentially be problematic and scary.
Totally.
And so it's fun. So like you were saying, it takes a while to ramp up, but at the same time, there's like a good horror movie. Like sometimes a boring horror movie can have really surprising moments because they take the time to build up the tension.
It's not an insult, Ben, because I trust your guys' opinion more than anyone. So when Jones was like, then it immediately went to the back of my queue, and then it fell through. I never.
But if you like horror, there's stuff Soma does that nobody else does. It's really cool.
For sure.
If you like sci-fi too, if you've listened to Ian talk about sci-fi stuff, there's some Ian-y sci-fi stuff in there that's done very well.
There's no complaint that drives me up a wall probably more than when somebody says like nothing happens, or like, oh, it's boring. Like, I definitely think things can be too slow, and I think pacing can be a problem, and I think there can be unnecessary scenes, but just because something is slow doesn't mean it's bad. It depends on how you execute it and what its purpose is. And like I think about The Witch, and I just saw, like, The Witch is one of my favorite movies ever. Love it.
The Witch is really good.
No doubt.
It's a super slow movie.
Yeah.
For a reason. Like, it pays off in an incredible way. Or like even Hereditary or Midsommar, also movies that I have huge affection for. I think kind of accomplish the same thing. Anyway, cool. Man, that new Amnesia. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, man. I'm just trying to plug the horror leaks, man. I got to just consume it all. Leaks. So really wanted just a fresh perspective. You know, Amnesia came out 10 years ago.
Dude, I believe it. I had a trip. Now.
We've been talking about the game for a long time.
Yeah, true. And it's so awesome when you dive back into an old game and you're like, okay, it holds up. Holy shit, I'm on edge.
I had that moment, Huber, when we were playing Last of Us 1, and I was like, it came out 7 years ago? It came out almost a decade ago? Yeah. It feels like a few years ago. And it was like really depressing, where it was like, what? Where did these 7 years go? Like, what happened? Oh, man. And I think sometimes they can work against you, where I was like, oh, this is 7 years old. This is going to feel really, really rough. Or like you get kind of like this bias towards it. And no, that game absolutely holds up. There's still there are some things that don't, of course, but yeah.
That remaster makes me obsessed with remasters. That is like the best remaster ever.
Not to dive back into Last of Us 2, but again, playing them back to back, Last of Us 2 compared to Last of Us 1, just lighting, incredible. Like the way Last of Us 2 handles darkness compared to Last of Us 1, it's incredible. How do how do they do this stuff?
How do they do it?
How do they do this stuff? Like, you pick up a guitar, and the way the sunlight bounces off of the guitar to show you like kind of the glossy finish that an acoustic guitar has. It's like, how did you make that happen? Do wizards make this shit?
They're not done. They're not done.
You know
you set up the ingredients for a scene, and then some people just look at it and they're like, "We're done. Let's move on."
You know what I love?
Next scene.
I love too.
They're not done.
The imperfections, Jones, where it's like, you know, I feel like there was an era where video games, everything was like right angles and like everything was like neat and like artificially perfect. Like in a cutscene in Last of Us, her shirt is more just like little like this.
Yeah.
Just like that little detail.
You know what I love? Wait, completely back on Last of Us now. I love just the little slivers in like a door that you can fit through. I've walked right past those, you know, and then like come back later and been like, oh, I can fit in these things. That's right, you know. But they really are just buried in that world. They don't have this traditional copy paste vibe to them. Totally. Just like, of course,
we are
this mechanic again.
We are just back on the
I
Last
love
of Us,
it.
but
Timestamp.
It demands it.
Last of Us Part 2, Part 2.
All right, moving on. I've been playing a little bit of the Pokemon expansion, the Isle of Armor.
Oh, nice.
And
as someone who doesn't know anything about Pokemon, Ben, catch me up to speed. What is it? What's going on?
Yeah, so it's kind of a shame because I think if Last of Us Part 2 didn't come out, I would have spent all my time just playing this, but I do want to get through Last of Us Part 2 before some YouTube thumbnail ruins everything.
Yeah.
No, I've started Pokemon Isle of Armor, and what it is basically is it's a new story that takes place on this island. Like you boot up the game and they're like, hey, you have this train ticket, go on this train, go to this isle. Wow. Here's DLC land.
Yay.
And it's all right.
Okay.
It's all right. I think a lot of the problems that I have are just sort of holdover problems that I have with Pokemon Sword and Shield. I do think it does some really good things. I kind of like how quickly, like Pokemon, right, is very notorious, almost aggressively, with how slow it is. Sure. and sometimes that can almost, depending on which Pokemon you're playing, sometimes that can almost be comical. But Isle of Armor, at least for the specific expansion, you sort of, you know, get to the station, you go to this island, and it's pretty quickly, you know, there is some preamble, of course, but pretty quickly it's like, go out and explore. And very quickly, I get out and I'm in this area and there's a ton of, you know, it's a wild area where I can go and catch a bunch of things. It's like, if you want to just poke around and explore to your heart's content, you know, you have a bike now, you can go on the water. For Pokemon, it feels pretty open-ended, where it's like, we trust that you know at this point what you're doing and you can go and have fun. So I do like that element of it. The other huge highlight of this game, Huber, and you're going to be really into this. So a big thing in the Isle of Armor is this dojo. And there's this master of the dojo. This guy is named Mustard. And I think what I'm trying to say is the characters of the expansion are very likable. So this kind of old, kooky Mustard, master of the dojo, is just this like joke loving. He's almost kind of like Splinter from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where like he's just kind of this big heart, like kind of like not taking. I mean, I guess if I'm making this comparison, Splinter is more serious than this guy is. This guy's definitely more of a cheesy jokester, but he has a great vibe to him, and he's always cracking a smile. And when he, you know, gives you these trials that you need to do, he kind of goes into the back of the dojo and he's playing with his Switch that he's got. He's got 2 Joy-Cons in his hand. So, you know, he's getting a lot out of life, Mustard is.
Jolly.
Yeah, I like him quite a bit. And I think just as good of a character is Clara. And she's sort of this rival character that you have. She's trying to, you know, prove herself to the dojo. And you encounter her. She's like the first new character that you encounter. And she's like, oh, hey, you know, let's do a battle. And then she sees how strong you are, and she runs back to the island. And she's like, oh, yeah, that new student that you're waiting for, they're not there. She just like tries to downplay you and keep you away so she can take the glory. And so she's a super fun character as well. And so
that's funny.
as far as the characters go, I'm having a good time. I think. Oh, another thing that I really like, that I think it does a good job of doing, is there are these three early on. There are these three slow pokes that you need to find, and kind of the twist is that they're super fast, and they're actually in the world, so you have to go and run into them, and they're moving kind of in these giant circles. And because this is Pokemon Sword and Shield, you see the Pokemon that are around, and so you have to try to run into these slowpokes while avoiding battles with other Pokemon. And it's like, oh, okay, you're taking this mechanic, being able to see Pokemon in the field, and making it an obstacle as I'm trying to complete this objective. And so I'm like, oh, I really like that design. That's good. It's a small thing, not something you praise up and down, but it's a cool little thing.
One of the most important questions: how many new Pokemon?
I don't know, actually, and I'm kind of glad that I don't know, because then, if and when they show up, it's a nice surprise. But unfortunately, I can't give you.
None have shown up yet, though.
No. The problem with Pokemon at this point is there's always like the seed of doubt where it's like, now there's so many Pokemon where you see when you're like, I think that's new, but maybe it's not. And I know that's not a problem for some people, but for me, there is that seed of doubt. So
dude, that cracked me up the whole time I was playing Shield, because I just imagined Kyle being like here's this Pokemon I'm familiar with, and like I'm at the same time catching the same Pokemon, and I'm like, wow,
right?
It's like, right. I didn't play Black and White, like I don't know who that dude is. That's funny.
Oh, but yeah, the problems that I have with Isle of Armor are really just kind of extension of problems that I have with Sword and Shield, and it's just like, God, this is not a good looking game. Like, on one hand, it's great that when I get to this isle, it's kind of immediately open, and there's, ample room to run around, but there's so little detail in this world. And I think, very different types of games, right? Not a very fair comparison, but it is accentuated bouncing from Last of Us to Pokemon, where the details are inaccurate. And it's just like, even for this platform, even for Switch, this is a rough game. Like these environments are just so basic and flat, and I think it's a shame, because they're clearly trying to make it feel like a world that is believable with these creatures, but it just feels so immediately gamey and rough and kind of ugly and basic. And that, of course, is amplified when you connect to the internet and you get people in your same world, other players, and it's just like, oh, they're just skipping along because the game can't handle when people aren't online, and then when you bring people online, it just gets even rougher, and it's just like, it's one of those games that when you're playing it, it's like, I can see a better version of this in my mind. I can see a higher fidelity, better running, better looking version of this in my mind, and I just want it to be better. And again, talking about context, right? Like, I'm definitely not as aggressive about context as somebody like Kyle was, because I think there are compromises you need to make sometimes, where it's like, well, this is better for the game if we include this thing. Like, it doesn't make exact sense, but it'll make for a smoother experience. I can appreciate that compromise. But in Isle of Armor, it's like kind of taken to an absurd degree, where like and this is true of Sword and Shield and Pokemon in general. This is not unique to this expansion, but it was something that was really standing out to me. Is there's just these people standing out for no reason. Like, I was running around the ocean, and there's just this lady standing there, and she's like, hey, I can upgrade this stuff for you. And it's like, why are you here? Like, why are you stranded in the middle of nowhere doing this? It's like, and then this other person's like, I can upgrade your bike, but it's like, why is the bike upgrade person here at this point? Like, I know this is not new to Pokemon, exactly, but it's like, you could probably put a little bit more care.
It's so easy to fix.
It's like, you could probably make these people make a little bit more sense than they're making.
No, man, it's Shield, but the one I always drop is you like finally get into like the frigid ice cold, and it's like, hey, I'm a dentist. It's like, what are you doing here?
What are you doing here? And like, on one hand, it's a little bit funny, but in Isle of Armor specifically, you run into all of these people that take care of one random thing for you, and it's like, it's going to be hard to remember maybe like where you are, because like it makes absolutely no sense that you're here. And so that's a little annoying. Definitely.
Yep.
And expectedly, now Huber, this is a complaint that you have, and it was a problem in Sword and Shield as well, is things are pretty easy. Especially post game, where it's like, well, I have super powerful Pokemon. I've been able to train them up. I've been able to give them good items. I've been able to get the legendary Pokemon. Does it feel like
post game? Does it feel? Yeah. Is there any kind of confusion there over like what level you should be or how it affects that?
So the Pokemon that you run into, at least at the beginning, like everything is around level 60. So like things are high level, but at that point, like, if you've played through the game,
I was in my late 70s. Yeah, forget it.
Wow, late 70s. I don't think I have anybody that's in late 70s. That grinding, Brandon Jones.
That's how I do it.
Yeah.
Grinding.
The Grandmaster.
Brandon.
I think to sum it all up, and again, my feelings on Isle of Armor could change over time, and I'm kind of curious to see where the story goes and where these characters goes. And these characters are good for Pokemon standards. Like, if you want more Pokemon, if you're hungry for more Pokemon, and I was kind of happy. Huber, you've always said this about DLC, and over time, I think I've come closer and closer and closer to your perspective on it, where sometimes, like, I just enjoy these games so much. It's nice having an excuse to jump back in and even if it's a little bit, having new things to play. And I'm definitely getting that with Pokemon, where it's like, I'm so busy. There's so many things I want to play. I did want to complete the Pokedex in Pokemon, but I should probably move on to these other things. Whereas like playing this expansion, it's like, man, it's nice. I love Pokemon. It's nice to revisit this.
That's what matters at the end of the day. That's so jolly.
Definitely.
So it's scratching the itch and giving you that then, just like, it's good to be back at least.
Yes.
Cool.
I'm enjoying it. I think there are good things about it, but it is crazy where it's like re-solidifying my feelings on Sword and Shield, where it's like, this could be better. This could definitely be better than it is. And I hope for the next one, they really take the criticism to heart and do what they can. They certainly don't have to, right?
They don't have to.
It sells out the ass regardless, but definitely looking at the world and how it's constructed, I think it could be done more carefully than it's being done. And it's crazy because, I didn't even play the whole thing, but playing Pokemon Black and White on stream last year, that world felt more carefully constructed and believable than what I'm seeing in Sword and Shield. So I know they're capable of it, right? So it's disappointing to see when things just feel so random and basic in Sword and Shield.
Phone it in.
Pokemon. Phone it in. Yeah. Huber! Huntdown. That's all I have to say.
When you boot up the game, this really awesome announcer goes, "Hunt down." It's really awesome. This is one of my goaties. Not even exaggerating. Not even kidding. It definitely won't. We probably won't even nominate it for goatee, but right now it is one of my favorite freaking games of the year. Easiest way to describe it is a cover-based Contra. It is a side-scrolling shoot 'em action game with an emphasis on cover. So you can hold up and go into an alleyway, pop out, shoot. You can duck down. There's 3 playable characters.
Huber, that description is really interesting because I would never want cover in Contra. What makes Contra?
So, it's not as fast-paced as Contra, but you probably could make it with people that are professional at this game, because some of the bosses can be pretty challenging.
Sure.
But the vibe is like Blade Runner meets the Warriors. There it is.
That sounds like Huber bait. For
sure. Cyberpunk future with these lawless gangs, and they all have like their own identity, like the Warriors. Like it's crap if I can remember. There's like the greaser type people, or like there's the hockey sports group. And you're a bounty hunter, and you're going through these stages. Each stage is about 7 to 10 minutes. And there's 4 worlds, each with 5 bounties. So there's about 20 stages throughout, and each stage culminates with a boss. and all the bosses have their own unique mechanics. And then the final boss of the world is like the gang leader, and that's usually a lot more intense.
Nice.
And just the aesthetic, the sound, the mechanics, everything about this game is just excellent. The balancing, the guns you use, you have your pistol, which is unlimited ammo, but then you can pick up one secondary weapon in the form of like shotguns. You know, the shotgun is devastating damage, but it's a close range. There's all these machine guns and rocket launchers and bombs. You have your hero ability, which in my case, I was the android character. And he can throw like three. He can throw like three kunai knives really fast.
This reminds me of Contra Hardcore.
Yeah, dude, it is. It's just so awesome. I played through the whole thing single player, but it is co-op. And before you go to each world, you have like your contact giving you the lowdown of like what's going on and talking about your fees, like just very hard boiled. There's a little weird comedy that doesn't always land, but it is just an awesome game. And the whole game too is only like, it took me like 5 or 6 hours. So you can get in, get out. But yeah, some of the bosses have a pretty tough challenge.
Something that I actually think is kind of bad about Contra is, and other games have this too, I think it can be a problem in Castlevania, where the disparity between the quality of your upgrades can be tremendous, where it's like you pick up like some upgrades and you're like, this weapon is garbage. And I wouldn't have known that, or I had no way of knowing that. I just kind of had to experiment. And I think sometimes it can be frustrating. You mentioned you can only have, one secondary weapon. Do you feel like everything kind of has a purpose and you're not necessarily like, oh, I screwed myself and I didn't know I would have?
Totally. It just comes down to ammo count, actually, Ben. That's the most important thing, because your pistol's unlimited, it's reliable, it works. But if you say you have your shotgun and you have like 8 bullets or 8 shells, but then there's like a machine gun there with like a lot of ammo, it's like, oh, maybe let me just drop the shotgun, which I would never do. Pick up this machine gun. So it just kind of depends on what you have and kind of what you're dealing with. Like everything seems viable for sure. And it's never overwhelming, It's very easy to pick up and know exactly what you have to do. You know exactly how to play. There are checkpoints throughout each stage. If you die, it's not too punishing. The only really punishing thing are a couple of the bosses took me a couple tries, but nothing too crazy. Really fun game. In every stage also, if you want to be really hardcore, I was just trying to breeze through the levels, like just get through it. But each level has rewards. You have to get a certain amount of kills to get one badge. You have to not die to get another badge. And then you have to find 3 hidden briefcases to get the other one. And these were really, really well placed. There's a lot of cool secrets. Sometimes an enemy will have a briefcase and he'll be like, yo, bounty hunter, get him. And he's like running, he'll run away with the briefcase. And then all these enemies will flood you. So you have to like deal with the enemies, but also keep up with the person running away. So just another element to add to the depth of each stage. And just the environments are beautiful. Really good music. Really, like, just look up some screenshots and you're going to be like, holy shit. Like, that's it. That's when I was sold. I saw a couple screenshots of this game and I was like, yep.
Hubert, I mean, your enthusiasm for this game really put it on my radar, and hearing you go into more detail about it just sounds better and better. I think
you will be obsessed with it, Ben. Guaranteed. You'll love it. You will love this game.
I think something I really love bosses in games.
Yeah.
Big fan of boss fights. A good boss fight will go a long way for me. And I feel like in games like this, right, in a genre that not that it seems like it's doing a carbon copy or anything, but it's obviously taking inspiration from, side-scrolling shooters of the past. That's a genre that has a lot of history, a lot of bosses, a lot of iconic monstrosities that you're facing off against. Does it feel like it is creative, or does it feel like it's kind of borrowing mechanics? So, there are certain ways I think that you can present weak spots or attack patterns where it sort of feels like, I've done this.
Yeah, Ben, great question. If I'm going to nitpick, the bosses are really good. I want to give praise to the bosses, and especially because there's like 20 of them. They find a way to shake it up as you go on. It's never just like rinse and repeat. They find ways to surprise you with interesting attacks that they do and interesting mechanics. Overall, it's not the best bosses in a game I've played, but they're just really solid. There's maybe one or two were like, wow, but for the 20 or so, they're all just good. They're really solid. But again, they're not 10 out of 10 bosses here, but really, really solid and services the game exactly as they should, for sure.
You mentioned some awkward humor, and that was surprising to hear, I guess. How does that manifest itself in the game?
Just I only really played as the robot character. Okay. So he's like really sarcastic and just has some weird robot kind of things that didn't always land. Like 1 minute he would be like, RoboCop, like, get down, scum, like I'll kill you, and then he would just say some weird like joke where it was like, huh? So
is there a lot of talking in the game, or is it something where it's like, okay,
not too much. You'll get like a cutscene kind of with the boss, when you get to a boss, they'll have a little banter, which is usually really good. Like some of these bosses are pretty intense, some are pretty funny, some are pretty nasty. And then of course, like, you get your briefing before each world. And then before you jump into a mission, you get just a little snippet of backstory on the boss and kind of what they are and their crimes. It's like murder, racketeering, the usual. So just a really awesome game. If you haven't heard of it, I'm recommending this thing to anyone that is out there. Like, this is a really, really good game.
I think I wanted to get it on PC because I'm trying to get as many things on PC as I can. I don't think it's out on PC yet. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it's like an Epic Store thing, and I was only looking at Steam. I could be wrong, but it's on PS4. I believe it's on Switch as well. Maybe not quite on PC yet, but cool.
Yeah, cool. But yeah, if you're into this genre, like, this is definitely one to check out and see if you're interested.
Nice. I feel so fortunate to be part of the Allies because, I spend a lot of my life playing games, but there are so many that a lot of things slip through the cracks. Tons of things that I wish didn't slip through the cracks. But because I interact with you guys, sometimes your enthusiasm for something really puts something on my radar. And it's like, okay, the way Hubert's talking about Huntdown, I got to play this game. I got to play this game.
Yes.
And I'm very grateful for those moments, for sure.
Yeah. It's just got such a slick style.
Slick style,
like
smoking sexy style.
Yeah, just the visuals, the enemy design, like the way that they mix it up too. Like some enemies have armor bend, and you'll have to like punch through the armor of your pistol. You're like, so intense. There's like a melee kick too if you get close. Environmental hazards once in a while. Just good stuff. Solid.
It's like you want to play it right now. Like you're ready to just end the Zoom call and go play it. But we can't because it's time for the HOTTAKE! This HOTTAKE might be a little bit premature because we're not quite through it yet. But boy, it's been a weird not E3. I guess that's the way to describe it. We don't have a traditional E3 because the world is on fire. And we've had a bunch of many conferences, some that have IGN's doing a thing. You've had the Guerrilla Collective, which is taking place over multiple days. You have the PC Gaming Show, which is, normally done at E3, but it's a little bit different now because of the pandemic. And so it's just been a strange situation. It's definitely been extended compared to like the very mostly crammed together week of E3. And I have a lot of thoughts on it and I think it's an interesting thing to talk about, kind of how this year has gone down and maybe some benefits of the approach and maybe some things that you definitely don't like. And so I just kind of wanted to gauge your feelings on the sort of online nature of these presentations.
It's hard to figure out if we're more accepting of these things because we know of the time, the restraints that everybody has right now, the difficulties in producing events, the way that we are used to doing them. or if these are actually like in some ways better. I think this is my favorite PC gaming show actually, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to go back to that live audience that just kind of slows things down, and like the time it takes to like for somebody to be like, and these people, and then they got to like walk down the stage and up the ramp and then like wave at everybody, and then we can find out more about Baldur's Gate 3. You know, it's like I kind of liked maybe a little silly joke or a little segue, but it just a lot of this stuff seems really focused, and I like. There's something to be said for the gauntlet of like doing everything at once. Like I do like that exhaustion coming out of all the press conferences, Nintendo first thing on Tuesday morning, and then you get to the show, having this kind of big 2-act structure to like, hearing about everything and then going there and demoing the games. But at the same time, even though this last week really felt like a non-E3 in terms of just stuff being back to back, we still have Cyberpunk, we still have more, Ubisoft, we still have more Xbox later in the summer. And so it is kind of nice looking ahead, and there always seems to be something happening next week. EA Play also, is this week, and Keely's got all of his stuff going on. So it's fun. It is kind of like Christmas blew up, but at the same time, I don't know if it's gonna be interesting to see what I don't want to take back when we get that opportunity to take some of this stuff back.
Yeah, I would like a hybrid of old E3 and this. Actually, I think this is so valuable. I think the way all these demos have come out and they've shown a bunch of games, and then people at home can just download them and play them. That is just amazing, and that needs to be the standard going forward. So kind of combining old and new E3, like evolve it in a way where people at home can participate more. And the live, like the pre-packaged like PC gamer style video, I think worked like exactly like you said, Jones, just way more focused, less downtime, less filler. So I think maybe like pre-packaged presentations might be the way to go. The only thing though, the thing I do miss, there is something about playing the game with the creators, with the developers. Like, to me, that is so valuable. You can pick their brain. You can get a sense of what they're going for. It doesn't always work. E3 is really messy.
Yes.
But, like Blood always says, playing a E3 demo on the steps on a laptop with this one developer of the game, like that has value. That has meaning. And I think that's important, that relationship, those bonds, it's like, tell me what this game is about rather than just like the rapid fire of game, and, just a little more personal. So
the mood inside the Respawn booth when I went to go play Fallen Order was like, these people really care about this game. These people really don't want to mess this up. These people are looking at me being like, what did you think? And I was like, oh, like that definitely was a part of my thinking of just that game in general.
On the flip side, I can see a lot of pessimists out there that say that's bad. You shouldn't be in a relationship with the and that's like conspiracy theory talk, that whole thing. And it's like, no, it's like, I'm a human, they're a human, they're making a game. Like, let me pick their brain about details. Like, Ben, I remember when you and I went to the Capcom booth and just talking about Monster Hunter and digging deep, getting those like interview style questions. It's not like buddy, hey, let's have a mimosa. It's like, no, let me see what your game is about. Let me talk to you and pick your brain. Do you even know what your game is about? Like, let's see.
Well, and a lot of times these games are so complex that getting as many avenues as possible to get insight into some of these is really valuable. Like Cyberpunk is a great example where, they had long presentations for Cyberpunk, but I felt like doing an interview was really valuable because it's like, all this stuff we didn't necessarily get in that gameplay presentation. Like, because there's so much to talk about.
Yes.
What I do like kind of about this year is I feel like it is, in a way, leveling the playing field a little bit. I really enjoyed watching those Guerrilla Collective streams. And it's like, boy, if this were any other E3 year, I don't think we would be able to give these small games the attention that we're giving them. We'd probably be talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake or something of that size. And so really able to get a wide array of tiny games and having them get our full attention, I really appreciate it, and I think it is awesome. And it has made me really excited just for crazy, goofy, wholesome indie games, games that really feel like they're trying as hard as they can to have a unique voice.
Like really Among Trees was revealed and caught my eye, and now I can't stop playing this game. Like that is because I wasn't at E3 bombarded by Fortnite and all this crazy shit. It was like the focus was on the games, and like you said, those indie games, and they rose through the noise. And just Among Trees is one of those. And now I'm like, would I have given this the time?
Right, exactly.
Last year with everything that happens during E3? I don't know. But now I'm playing this game and I love it. And yeah, there's like making the viewers at home feel more a part of it, I think, is essential. And that's got to be the standard.
And I kind of agree with your earlier point here, where like I appreciate the push to get more of these demos out on Steam and have people try things. Like it's really exciting to go and be like, oh, all these games that they're talking about, like it's either already out or I can get a taste of it now. I love that. I want to see more of it. But I think for bigger games, a negative to this year is, I think sometimes when you only have a trailer to go on, it can do your game a disservice. Like I really want to know how Godfall feels.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think that would be a very valuable E3 impressions video. Right. And I think
absolutely, Ben. Well said.
Are a number of new IPs on both Sony's side and Microsoft's side where you feel very limited just talking about, a 1.5 minute trailer.
Totally. There's only so much analysis we can give on a 90-second trailer. Like we can only say that looks like so-and-so so many times without getting our hands on it, for sure. And I think you're so right with the bigger games get hit the hardest in that sense. Yeah. Like Horizon, right? The trailer was fine, but like I don't have a sense of really what the hell Forbidden West feels like or plays, or I can't really get a sense of the scope because I'm not playing it.
Right. Whereas like the trailer, it's like, oh, this is a Horizon sequel. And playing it, you're like, oh, this is how they're improving it. And I can get into the nitty gritty. And because it's a sequel, that nitty gritty really matters. Right. And I think like Last of Us 2 is a good example where watching people play it or watching trailers, you don't kind of appreciate the small changes as much as a sequel, for sure. I also just feel like with shows kind of being smaller and more drawn out, it's hard to get as excited in a way. I think there's something special about kind of having this. And it's longer than this. They have E3 has gotten more extended over time, but the 3 days of E3, there's something special about it. And I think because of the rise of Nintendo Direct style presentations, your State of Play, your Inside Xboxes, as those things have increased, this doesn't feel as special anymore. It feels like what we're doing now, we could do at any time. And so, I have to remind myself, like, oh, this is when E3 would be happening. It doesn't really feel like that. We react to stuff all the time now. And so I miss kind of getting together and having it feel special.
Totally. And Jones, you were talking about like live audiences, like, get rid of them because it just adds all this, stop and start and awkward applause or no, just like all this awkward element. But at the same time, when a show is good and you have some Sony event like that, that is an electricity and a hype that definitely makes E3 feel more special.
It's just a question of what's the value there. Like if you were to put a price tag on that, it's just, it's a check you're writing that's the same as anything else you're going to spend money on. It's like, it's fun, but do we need to do that?
Good point.
Nintendo sure thinks they don't. We're going to get some Smash news coming up. We got some Pokemon news out of nowhere, but I don't know if it's interesting to see Nintendo's approach to this. Just kind of like Sony a couple months ago, just like, we're fine. We'll show up. We got more stuff to show.
I guess I am kind of appreciative. I suppose on one hand, the delirium of E3 is really nice. Like, there are definitely times where we're so tired and worn out for the day that I think it leads to funny moments. But I think it's nice being able to really focus on events or quickly bounce from one thing to another and not have to like drive to the LA Convention Center, drive back. It's like, oh, this is time that we could be spending talking about stuff. It does feel a little bit more efficient and compact. And I think spreading it out, we could have a lot of energy to focus on something like the Guerrilla Collective, where it's like, okay, we're giving this just as much attention as we would like the PlayStation 5 reveal. And so that I appreciate.
I will say I really miss doing that Hubris Syndrome, though. That's like my favorite part.
Oh, yeah.
Just getting in people's faces and blasting them with the mic. Super fun. Kept running into allies, just hugging all around. That's not going to happen.
Not that this doesn't happen at E3. You have things like the Treehouse where they go out of their way to show very extended looks at things. But watching the Baldur's Gate thing with Brad, it's like, maybe this game wouldn't have had the space to do that during a normal E3 year, where it's like they're like showing an hour and a half of this guy going through and making minor decisions. And it's like, this for a huge, dense RPG like this, really digging into the minutia and seeing how an entire battle plays out is super important. And you just can't get that across in a short little trailer. And so I do appreciate those deep dives.
Absolutely.
In a way, what is it? Metal Hellsinger? Is that the name of the game?
Metal Hellsinger.
Hellsinger. Okay.
Metal Hellsinger. Yeah.
It's funny because
this game now.
The more I saw that game, the less hype I got on it. Where I felt like the kind of structure of things, like just the way that they were presenting it, I lost enthusiasm. Whereas it was like just the trailer and the idea, I think I would have been really curious. But
the third time I was like, all right.
Yeah,
I've tried not to let the booking of stuff like sway my thoughts too far from just how much of this was planned. Like EA Play was really interesting to watch and be like, did anything get shuffled? Anything get moved around? Was this exactly how they wanted Squadrons, to be shown? And so, having Sony go way early, having Microsoft split their stuff between two events this summer, having Nintendo kind of not show up at all, it's been interesting trying to guess, like, would any of these games be this ready, or are they leaning more on this one game to show more stuff? Because it's like, we got to cancel that other thing because there's just no way, if we're working from home, we're going to be able to get what we had planned to get ready for E3. And they'll never tell. It'll be a decade from now. We'll like hear those stories about before something launched or before something got announced. Who knows?
I guess kind of the final question to wrap up this discussion of how E3 events have gone this year. So let's say next year, just hypothetically, they're like, hey, we're going to do everything digital again. You're not going to go to the convention center. It's going to be hands off. We'll try to give you as many demos as we can. Would you be okay with that? Would you be okay with kind of this being the starting point of something new?
If they release a bunch of demos like on Xbox Live and PlayStation Network and the eShop, for sure, feel free. I think you nailed it, Ben. Just the biggest hurt was not being able to take those deep dives into the big first-party IPs or first-party games, and just lacking that perspective. So I think if they found a way to get those games out and then everyone could play them, like, but will they do that? I don't know. But if they did that, I'd be so down. Maybe even with more planning, obviously, because this year was such a crazy whirlwind.
Right.
Obviously, they could set up appointments and interviews, and then you could have the discussions with the developers online.
Sure. Yeah, that would be interesting. It would be nice because, again, the kind of physical nature of E3. Wow, Huber, I didn't even think about that point. But if we could set up appointments where it's like, okay, we're going to have a reaction stream, and then, Huber's going to interview somebody immediately after, and we just roll into it. And you don't have that, like, awkward space where it's like, okay, we got to go do the interview. We got to get the footage. We got to make sure it has B-roll, and then we got to like edit it. Like, you know, again, just making things as efficient as possible so they can happen immediately and kind of keep that momentum. Yeah, that's a good idea. Mm-hmm. How about you,
What do you
Brandon?
think, Jones? Yeah, you've been to a lot of E3s.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that would break my heart would be if Jeff Keighley pulled like a James Cameron and it's just like, I'm just gonna go sailing for 8 years, and it's like, don't leave, Jeff, no, you know, like I'm just glad that June is still an event, you know, because like it used to be May, it was just always the beginning of the summer, and just that, like, that's still an important time to really start to set up, like, you know, the train has left the station the hype train is in terms of getting everybody excited for what we're going to be spending money on, you know, before the end of the year. And with new consoles showing up, it's just like, there's just a lot to buy on, you know, PC or any of the, you know, the consoles that'll be available from the end of the year. And so as long as that excitement is there, as long as, you know, people one thing that was really fascinating was the synergy between the press conferences on Saturday. So you had Gorilla and then PC Gaming Show, and they talked about each other a lot. You know, like press conferences say, okay, that's it for this press conference, tune in for this later. And like, there's no way Ubisoft would like throw to Xbox or something.
Right. Well,
like, so like, there you might see Assassin's Creed show up in a couple extra things, but it was just the way everything was presented, like everyone still had that vibe. They knew it was different. And so it'll be interesting to see if there's still this kind of self-aware commentary on, you know, how COVID and just the world has changed everything across the media landscape. And even if things go back to some semblance of normal, it's still going to be something that I think will be brought up and be talked about. But I'm just glad, even if it's a different party, I'm just glad we're still having a party.
Yeah.
You know?
Are we ready for some emails?
Let's do it.
Cool. We're like almost exactly at the 2-hour mark. Look at us. Look at us. Did you ever think we'd be here? Not me. Our first email comes in from Jason. One-of-a-kind bugs. Hello, Ben and Allies. I was wondering if you have run into any unique, baffling, or otherwise truly outrageous bugs or glitches in a game. I don't mean stuff like clipping through the world, models failing to load, or other common bugs that are par for the course these days. I mean truly weird bugs you've never seen anywhere else. For example, last week I was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and after 40 hours playing on my Xbox One X without a problem, I was suddenly no longer able to perform a light attack. My right bumper button was not broken. Every other action still worked. I just couldn't do a light attack. I tried swapping light and heavy attack buttons in the options, which resulted in me being able to perform both attacks without issue. After doing a lot of troubleshooting, I came to realize that my game save was somehow corrupted, and light attack was only broken when it was mapped to the right bumper on that specific controller. Other controllers worked fine, and even using the original controller while streaming the Xbox to my PC worked fine. I have never run into such a bug before, found it more interesting than anything else. Anyway, that's my story. Keep up the great work. You're the best in business in what you do. Stay safe, stay healthy, and of course, stay easy, fellow allies. Any outrageous bugs? I always think these are fun to talk about.
Blood's the one to ask.
Yeah, Blood loves recording those bugs. Mafia 2 Definitive Edition bug-ridden mess. One of my favorite ones was the entire game's audio left speaker only. The whole game. Only left side.
That's
insane.
Upsetting.
Yeah.
That would drive me insane.
Don't get me started, man. I've ranted enough about Mafia.
Do you think the Mafia 2 Definitive Edition is worth it and people should buy it?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Just buy the original. Buy the regular, base, normal, original edition.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Jones, any crazy bugs you can think of?
You know what? I don't, man.
It's hard.
The one I got burnt on more than anything was my GTA Online character. Got like just glitched out immediately, and I lost like so much money and experience.
Frankenthug, right?
I was like, Rockstar, don't do this to me, and they were like, "There's nothing we can do." I'm like, "No,
we don't care. We have all the money."
Yeah. But that felt bad. Because I just had to create a brand new character because it was just all... My appearance was bugged, my money was bugged, progress was bugged. Everything, did not work out. Whatever happened to that GTA Online? Is that doing well?
I don't think anybody plays it.
That's the other thing, too. I had such a nice head start. Like 20 or so levels. I just had to, like a fart in the wind. Gone.
Harsh.
It reminds me of the Venom quote. like a turd.
Yep.
In the wind. Okay. That movie is crazy.
That movie is crazy. I enjoyed it.
I had one recently with The Last of Us, Part 1, and I couldn't believe it, Huber. So there's a boss fight in Winter. Very famous boss fight.
Oh my god!
I was very excited to show my wife it. We go into the restaurant where it takes place, and the guy that we're supposed to fight is just outside the building. Supposed to be inside the building, but he was just like running up against the building like this and just like taunting, and I couldn't do anything. And we just watched him be completely glitched out of the building. I was like, I am amazed that this is happening. Now, all I had to do was I just went and restart encounter, and he appeared where he was supposed to be. But it was like jarring. I was just shocked that it was happening. I'm glad we weren't like stuck or anything, but yeah, that's what happened.
That's really funny.
All right. Next email comes in from Callum. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Hi there, allies. Hope this is the right email address. It is askeasyallies@gmail.com. As the PS5 event passes by and we still have no confirmed price for either of the next-gen consoles, the consensus on the internet seems to be that these consoles are going to be quite expensive, a common take being $500 type expensive for each of the systems. I'm confused as to why the industry appears to be going this direction, especially when you consider what the most popular games in the industry actually are. When it comes to Sony and Microsoft for the last 2 generations, one company has completely fallen flat pre-launch with the other taking advantage. Am I 100% off base in my opinion that this time both companies have lost sight of what games the average person plays and what is actually technically required to play those games? Does the average person want a $500 system to play FIFA, NBA 2K, Call of Duty, Fortnite, or Rocket League? Would a weaker but $100 or more cheaper console be dead on arrival for either of these companies, who right now are too afraid of being undercut to reveal the price of their systems?
I think $500 is a shitload for anything. That's a lot of money. $400 is just rolls off the tongue better. You know, when PlayStation launched, right, it was $400. But at the same time, PlayStation 4 lasted 7 years. You know, this was a 7-year console. So I guess it's all like
I think the argument against that is something like the PlayStation 4 Pro or the Xbox One X, right? Where like it's, you know, not everybody upgraded. You could stay with a base version of the system, but I think people that purchase lasting 7 years is a little bit undercut by the existence of the upgrades.
True. Fair point. But yeah, I mean, it's a big electronic. Like, it's going to be expensive. It sucks. But if they start going like $600, that's like $599 US, you know? I think it's a hard pill to swallow no matter what. Even like $400, you know? It sucks having to buy a new TV when that happens, or a computer, or a car, or a like, anytime you have to make a big purchase, it sucks. And you just have to weigh, you know, you have to weigh that to your life and what's important, and at least it's going to last years, you know, even if there is a newer like PlayStation or Xbox down the line. I just try to think like, this is a big purchase, you know, consoles only come around once every many years. It'll last a while. Like, it makes it easier to stomach, but still at the end of the day, it's a big purchase, and no matter what the price is, it's going to suck.
I think we can't unfortunately really offer the perspective of somebody who plays games very casually. Like, video games are not a primary hobby, right? Where I think for all of us, not only are video games our job, but one of our most consistent and primary hobbies as well. And so it's going to be different than somebody who very occasionally plays games. Yeah,
like between me and my wife, like, she uses it for, you know, Netflix and stuff.
Yeah.
Our PlayStation is on 10 hours a day every single day.
Yeah.
Like, the value is there, at least, with these consoles. But like you were saying, that perspective of someone, you know, that doesn't play a ton of games. That's why when I was in Twitch chat the other day, a rumor, the chat said it, was that the Lockhart was going to be like $200 or something. Just an absolute, like, that's the rumor going around now. And I think that would be a very, very smart move, coming in with some ultra affordable less powerful console to cater to people that don't play every game 10 hours a day.
What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is so many people are freaking out about deadlines and when things are going to reopen and when things are going to be available. You have a lot of developers that are planning on stuff near the end of the year. Cyberpunk just got delayed, but not but that far. Everyone's just kind of shaking a little bit and just kind of playing musical chairs in terms of what financially they want to commit to in terms of selling a thing en masse digitally or actually shipping things. And Sony the entire time has been we are selling this, we are launching this in 2020, it's happening. And so it's I think Sony sees the window of when they can get this console in front of people, and it's we can't miss this, we have to do it. And so I don't know, I don't think 500 is that scary because of the investment long term that they are looking to make. Sony definitely taking the approach of having big names people are really excited about, big games that they know are going to sell a ton, whereas I think Microsoft is obviously more focused on the install base. They want to get people in at a very cheap price, whether it's undercutting them in sales in their console or having different versions of it, or the value that you get for Game Pass. But I think they're looking in terms of kind of like Destiny, the long term of when we come back inevitably next season or in a couple months to make another sell that people buy in on this gen, what are we going to offer then? Because there's just not a lot that we know about that's happening at the launch of these systems. I think that conversation is going to get old real quick, where they're not a lot of launch games. It's clearly not. It's just not the way this year's been. I'm not surprised.
Ben, you did scare me with the PlayStation Pros and the Xbox Series X, because those only came out a few years ago, and that kind of sets a dangerous benchmark, right? Series X was $500 when it comes. Is that right? It was $500, and the PS4 Pro was $400. I mean,
I believe that is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, if those are that expensive, then right. Dude, maybe these new consoles are going to be $600 or even $700. Obviously, $700 would be a kiss of death, but
yeah.
Dude, I could see it getting really scary and people being surprised about whoa, PS5 is $650 for the disc one or something, and $550 for the digital. That shit can get scary, and yeah. So
I don't have the most reasonable perspective on this for sure, because I'm coming from somebody who it's excess money that I have is going to my primary hobby, which is video games. I don't have some other passion that I'm spending a lot of money on or doing all this stuff. I primarily use the money that I have outside of the necessary things to invest in video games, because that's my number one passion.
Same.
And so
it's my only expense.
I'm coming from a very specific perspective where it's paying a lot of money to have this stuff look and run as good as possible is important to me. Not saying it has to be important to everyone or that's the right call, but it does definitely color my commentary on the value of these things, certainly. And I don't necessarily know that I agree with the argument that this email is kind of making, where it's hey, a lot of popular games don't need that much power to run. And that's true. But I think even to people who don't play games as intensely as we do, graphical prowess is still kind of a number one thing that draws people in. I think if you play sports games, there are a lot of people who very much care about how they look. If you play Call of Duty, you very much care about how it looks. You want a new Rockstar game to be pushing as many boundaries as possible. And so I think even at a very basic level, graphics and performance matter kind of en masse. And so while that's not true a lot of the times, and you can find success outside of that, I think amongst console games and PC games, graphics still matter to a very large audience.
Yeah, when I say my only expense, I meant my only excess expense.
Right.
Like you were saying, your only hobby.
Right.
Yeah, and it's and money is the main reason too. I don't get into PC gaming that much. You know, that's an expensive hobby. I choose my battles to the living room. I want a TV and a console versus a crazy monitor and graphics card. So I think just picking your battles here and Like, it's such a case-to-case basis with every single person buying these consoles. We all live in different circumstances, and we all love games on different varying levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not at all trying to make the argument that if you have less money to spend on games, that means you don't care as much. I don't think that is true at all, by any means. But of course, it's a very real problem, and worrying about price does matter. But I do think, depending on what your priorities are or what your situation is, it changes, dramatically from person to person.
Dude, I'm getting nervous now, man. Thinking about, seriously, if the Series X was $500 freaking dollars,
well, the Xbox One X, is that what you're talking about?
That's what the X. God, sorry, confusing.
Yeah,
the Xbox One X being $500, if the Series X is the same price, are you then telling me that they're equal power? Why am I going to buy a next?
Technology changes fast.
Fair. You slash the 1X price when the Series X got it. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, I do think 500 is a very real possibility. Mm-hmm. Our last email comes in from Kyle Wing. He says, "Dearest Ben and other lovely allies, I was watching a Valorant video review." I really love this email, by the way. And what struck me was that during the video review, the game footage only showed that the player was doing absolutely amazing. Clutch shots to win the match, incredible headshots, and especially not one death. I don't know why, but once I was aware of that, the video material shown felt very one-sided and gave me a cynical thought that the reviewer didn't want to show any type of failure whilst playing the video game. Perhaps the reviewer is absolutely amazing at the game, perhaps not. When I watch a review, I love seeing everything that may happen during playing the game. Great plays, dumb plays, epic kills, and dumb deaths. Because of the Valorant review, a couple of questions popped up in my head. Have any of you gotten negative comments on your video review regarding your level of play? Yes, everyone always gets.
Of course, yeah. I didn't know that's where that was going.
How aware are you of that with regards to making the video review? Have you ever thought anything along the lines of, this death looked quite dumb, that is not going to be in the review? Very curious what you think on this. Shout out to EZA and the community's support for Black Lives Matter. Makes me love and respect you even more. Stay safe and healthy.
The only thing I ever think about outside of the game, the only thing I'm ever thinking about is spoilers. So as much as Brandon Jones will bug the shit out of me to give him more footage for a video review, I'm only capturing the first hour or two of a game, period. That's all you need to see. Sorry. I am so big on spoilers, which made the Last of Us review really frustrating because people thought I was a paid shill by not mentioning things or showing other things, when really,
the real answer is you didn't get paid enough.
Well, one, stuff is embargoed, but two, even if it wasn't, I'm not going to show that shit.
Yeah.
I'm very big on, here's kind of the flavor of it all and my thoughts, and let you decide and you discover, because the sense of discovery in a video game is one of the best parts. It's one of my favorite things of games, is being surprised, discovering things.
Yeah.
So I'm only ever really conscious about spoilers.
I view you you know how they tell stories about like characters that can feel others' pain, or somebody that's connected to the earth that can feel
empath.
the earth's pain. Yeah, I feel like you're that with spoilers. When something is being spoiled out there, you are connected to it and you can feel that pain.
It hurts.
Yeah. To answer this question,
I didn't mean to call you out, Brandon. I love you.
Well, it's funny from an editor's perspective. There's a lot of reviews I work on that I'm not planning on playing this game. I'm not familiar with the gameplay before I get it. And yeah, one of my favorite things when we did the Souls retro, every time Brad would die, he would just immediately stop capturing. And I'm like, Brad, I need the death. It's a Souls retro, man. You fail. That's the whole point of it's kind of the bit of the games, and he would I could see him start to slip off the edge of the cliff and the clip would stop. And I'm like, I want to see you fall off the cliff, man. That's very important.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And, so I think that is important, especially for a Devil May Cry or even Spider-Man. I remember there was one shot in Spider-Man where I get just, I get a hit with a rocket that comes out of nowhere. And so you want to make sure, especially if you're capturing and you're never going to meet the person that's doing it if you're working for a big company, then you always want to make sure you have, as varied of an experience as possible. Yeah, because that is part of the whole thing.
It's funny you bring up Devil May Cry, because doing the Devil May Cry Retro, I went through that experience with Don, where I was playing all of those games back to back to back to get footage, and I just ended up like redoing a lot of Devil May Cry 1, because that was I started obviously with 1. It was like, oh, well, now I'm just playing it better. I'm showing off this game better. And that happens in reviews too, where I will definitely take out a shot where it's like, okay, well, clearly I'm still just learning the game and I'm trying to make this point about a mechanic. And so I want to show a section that demonstrates my point, I think, a little bit more capably than when I'm just being introduced to the mechanic. I do think this email makes a great point. There is a lot of benefit in showing failure, and I don't think you need to be so precious of it. But it sort of just depends on what it is and what the tone of the review is going to be. I think it's easy to get self-conscious about it, though, because you could be playing amazingly well. You could be playing like super, super good, and there will be a YouTube comment that's like, you get paid to do this, you idiot. Right. Like that's just the nature of the beast. So you can't worry about it too much. But
yes,
yeah.
Correct.
Not that we necessarily play super, super well, but you know how it goes. Thank you to everybody who wrote in an email. Again, the email address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. Huge thank you to my lovely, lovely, lovely guests, Michael Huber and Brandon Jones, for being on this episode of Frame Trap. Very much enjoyed this episode. If you would like to find out more about us, go to patreon.com/easyallies. That we need your support to continue this, to make this happen, to do shows like this. I know we do a lot of Frame Trap, but Frame Trap still needs support to exist.
Never enough Frame Trap.
You say that now. Patreon.com/easyallies. If you want to help continue this thing, definitely go there. And yeah, that'll do it. Really enjoyed talking about this. Really looking forward to that Last of Us Part 2.
Deep dive.
Okay, so I kind of get annoyed saying Last of Us Part 2. Mm-hmm. Do you just say Last of Us 2 or do you say Part 2? I feel like I've alternated back and forth.
Just for ease, I say 2, but when I'm being really serious, like, dude, Part 2, out of respect.
Respect.
Yeah, just when we're casually, loosely talking about it.
I had to struggle the other day because I thought Forbidden West was kind of a mouthful. It's like Forbidden West, like wow, that's a lot. And it's like, wait, The Last of Us Part 2, Horizon Forbidden West. I guess it's only one more. I don't know.
That's funny.
Titles. I love being a stickler about the dumbest titles and just obsessing about subtitles and sequel names.
Blood often freaks out about game colons in titles.
I know.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a fun correction to get from Blood.
Yeah, it's always fun. All right, that is going to do it for Frame Trap. Until next time.